Yes, of course. So first of all, anal cancer is a rare cancer in the general population. For example, like um, at the population level, the incidence rate for per 100,000 persons is 1.2 per man and 2.4 per woman. So it's a very rare disease. However, there are certain specific populations that have at highly elevated risk of developing anal cancer. So for the main risk group is people with HIV. So recently, there are two organizations strongly recommend anal cancer screening for specific populations. For example, the International Anal Neoplasm Society, and CDC's Department of Health and Human Services have recommended anal cancer screening for people with HIV. But we have other at high risk populations, particularly for the vulvar cancer survivors, the woman with history of vulvar cancer, and one of the risk group is also is the woman with a history of cervical cancer. However, so far we don't have a lot of information on these groups, particularly for example, we should we screen or not? So, and if we should screen, which specific subgroups in these high risk groups we should screen? So those are the main the gaps, knowledge gaps at this point. The other important aspect is anal cancer is rare, and for example, if we conduct a screening test, how we should be be sure about the individual have actually anal cancer. So for this one, we are using high um, resolution anoscopy, and we call it HRA, and HRA is right now is limited in the we have a limited resources for HRA in the United States. Yes. So first of all, in this study, we analyzed if the woman with the cervical cancer, with a history of cervical cancer, have a higher risk of developing cancer. And this study says yes. So from this perspective, we look at the problem from the epidemiological perspective, and this is going to be the one of the first studies that shows at this like at the population level the risk of anal cancer among women with a history of cervical cancer. So so our results shows that uh, these women particularly for their age older than 65 to 74. And and the cervical cancer diagnosis is before 15 years or 10 years before, they have a higher risk of developing anal cancer, which exceeds the 17 per 100,000 person years, which is the threshold that International Anal Neoplasm Society use for their like screening guidelines. So our results are in terms of from this perspective is very important, and we should start screen or we should do further investigation for the potential effectiveness and cost effectiveness of the screening, anal cancer screening among women with cervical cancer. Right now, we don't have this study doesn't look at how the cervical cancer, like women with cervical cancer, have higher risk. We haven't looked at that like perspective from the biological perspective, but main speculation is that both cancers are HPV associated, human papillomavirus associated. So, and we know that the co-infection for cervical HPV and anal HPV is common among women. So the HPV causal impact of HPV can be the main reason that we are observing higher incidence among these women. So, but this is again speculation, and we need more study to understand the link between anal cancer and cervical cancer biologically. Yes. So there are several organizations. They develop their own screening guidelines. So the one biggest department is United States Preventative Task Force. So right now we don't have any screening from USPSTF at this point. But these findings can be the first, the indication that we should further investigate the woman with a history of cervical cancer for the anal cancer screening. So first of all, the main organizations use um, large clinical trials and for other kind of observational data. However, the cancer is still rare. It's not like fast developing. So the generally organizations are using mathematical models. So what does the mathematical models? So they took the natural history of these two diseases and they try to model anal cancer among women with cervical history of cervical cancer. Then they evaluate the several screening algorithms, and they assess their like incidence, mortality, and from cost perspective, and from other like quality, like life expectancy and quality adjusted life years. So we are using several outcomes. And at the end, we are saying that, okay, we should screen for anal cancer among the women with cervical cancer. So we need more mathematical and more detailed research for this. And actually, so my mentor, Ashish Deshmukh, he is also a member of Holland Cancer Center, and he and his colleagues have a currently ongoing R01 project that I'm also part of this project. So we are working on this particular problem. Should we screen a woman with history of cervical cancer? Yes.